shall listen closely. When darkness wraps the world and dreams begin to stir, you've arrived at the right place. Welcome to Between Dreams and Shadows, the sanctuary of stories that live between sleep and the unknown. Here, every tale is more than a story. It's a portal to hidden worlds, forgotten secrets, whispers from beyond, and shadows that speak as your eyes begin to close. If you're drawn to mysteries, haunting legends, and stories that send shivers down your spine, this channel is your new nighttime ritual. Before we begin, I invite you to become part of this growing nightbound community. Subscribe now, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a tale. New stories drop regularly, always under the veil of night. Like this video if you enjoy that chill before sleep. It helps this channel grow and lets me bring you deeper, darker stories. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had a strange dream? Or felt something watching in the dark? Your experience might inspire the next tale now. Take a deep breath, turn off the lights, leave the world behind, and get ready to drift between dreams and shadows. The old house never creaked, at least not until after midnight. It was tucked away at the edge of a dying forest, surrounded by tall black trees that barely moved, even when the wind insisted. I moved in alone, looking for solitude, unaware that solitude often invites things that shouldn't be disturbed. My name is Ava Mercer, and I don't scare easily. I've seen enough of the world to know the difference between fear and superstition. But something changed the first week I slept in this house. Not in any dramatic way, no slamming doors or haunted mirrors. Just ... a weight in the air, a presence. Each night, as I turned off the lights, silence would settle with a kind of pressure. The kind that makes you hold your breath without knowing why. My room is on the second floor. A large window overlooks the forest, but I kept the curtains shut tight. I never wanted to see what might be watching back. The house groaned lightly as it cooled from the day, but one sound always stood out, something barely audible, like the hush of a breath that wasn't mine. It started the fourth night. I lay still, wrapped in layers of blankets, trying to convince myself that the chill wasn't from fear, that the hush I heard was just the wind whispering past the frame of the house. But the air was still, and wind doesn't whisper your name. Ava. Soft, almost tender, almost familiar. I opened my eyes to darkness so thick it pressed against my vision. I waited, straining, but the whisper didn't return. I told myself it was nothing. The brain, after all, is a trickster in the dark. It fills silence with meaning. But even as I turned over, facing the wall, a single thought echoed louder than the wind ever could. What if I wasn't alone when I closed my eyes? I didn't sleep that night. I began to notice the small things first. A glass I knew I left on the kitchen counter would appear on the table instead. My bedroom door, always closed before I slept, would stand slightly ajar in the morning, enough to make me wonder if I'd imagined it shut the night before. Things like this are easy to dismiss. We blame our routines, our forgetfulness. We build comfort out of doubt. But one evening, while brushing my teeth, I saw it in the mirror. A slight movement in the hallway behind me. Too fast to be a person, too slow to be nothing. I froze, foam thick on my lips, breath caught in my throat. The hallway was empty, still, but my reflection looked different. My face was paler than I remembered. My eyes, tired in a way they hadn't been hours ago. I turned off the light, retreating to the bedroom. Maybe it was stress, I thought, or the silence getting too loud. But silence doesn't knock. 3 knock soft. Deliberate echoed from inside my closet that night. I didn't move at first. I just lay there, my entire body paralyzed by a primal kind of awareness. Not fear. Not yet. Just a bone-deep certainty that something unnatural was hiding behind that thin closet door. The knock didn't repeat. Nothing moved. No whisper followed. Eventually, my eyes closed, not from sleep, but from a refusal to see what might. be standing in the dark. The next morning, my closet door was open. A shirt was missing. One I hadn't worn or touched since moving in. I searched the house. Every room, every locked cabinet, every dusty corner. Nothing. No sign of forced entry, no broken windows. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that the house wasn't reacting. To me, it was adjusting, as though it was accommodating something new. Something already inside. By the seventh night, even the shadows felt wrong. They stretched in odd directions, not following the rules of the single bedside lamp. I watched them shift on the walls as I lay awake, barely breathing, my ears tuned to every creak, every sigh of the house. Then the mirror cracked. No sound, no force, just a quiet fracture from corner to corner. A thin line like a scar. My reflection now split, my face bisected by something unseen. It was no longer my house, and I was no longer sure. I was the only one living in it. It came the following night, a sound that didn't belong not to the house, not to the forest, not even to the human world. It began just as I closed my eyes, in that fragile space between waking and sleep, where the mind still listens, even if the body has begun to surrender. It was faint at first, a hum, not mechanical, not musical. It vibrated just below hearing, like something ancient exhaling beneath the floorboards. A low, droning murmur that made the hairs on my arms lift as though it was crawling beneath my skin. I sat up, heart thudding in rhythm with the sound, but the room was quiet. Too quiet. My ears rang in the silence, straining for proof that what I'd heard wasn't imagined. Then it returned closer. This time it wasn't a hum. It was whispering. Dozens of voices, layered upon each other, murmuring just beyond the edge of comprehension. Male and female, child and adult. Some sharp, others wet and slow, all saying nothing I could understand. But they were saying something. I pressed my palms to my ears. The whispers grew louder. It wasn't in the room. It was in my head. I staggered to the bathroom, flicked on the light, and leaned over the sink, trying to catch my breath. Steam from the evening's hot shower still clung to the mirror, now smeared with handprints I hadn't left. Fingers too long, palms too small. I backed away. The whispering stopped. I left the bathroom light on and returned to the bedroom. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I blinked, I saw something behind my eye shapes in the fog of memory. Outlines of people that weren't people. Bent necks, hollow mouths. Things not made to be looked at directly. At 3:17 a.m., a voice spoke clearly for the first time. It was right beside me, its breath hot against my ear. Don't move. I didn't. For a full hour, I stayed frozen in my bed, eyes wide, staring at the black ceiling, terrified that whatever had spoken was still watching, still waiting. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember waking up with blood on my pillow. My nose had bled in the night. At least, that's what I told myself. But it wasn't dry. It was fresh, wet, warm, like something had been done to me, and carved faintly into the wall above my bed. In a trembling script that hadn't been there before, were 3 words: "You heard us." From that night forward, I was never alone in the room. I couldn't see it. Not truly, but I felt it. As real as breath on glass. As sure as pressure on your chest when you're not fully awake. Something had settled into the house, into my space, with no interest in hiding anymore. The air changed when it arrived. Always colder. Still, a hush would fall over the world, as if even time refused to move while it was there. Every sound became muffled, every shadow more deliberate. Not flickering, but watching. One night, I tested it. I sat on my bed and turned off the lamp, leaving myself in complete darkness. I waited, listening, not breathing. That was when I heard it. Not just whispers this time. Breathing, right beside me. Shallow, wet, irregular, like someone struggling not to gasp. It didn't come from the walls. or beneath the bed. It came from the empty space on the mattress, just inches away. I turned on the light. There was nothing, but the imprint of a hand lingered on the blanket. No fingers, just a palm, a small, deep press, as if someone was trying to reach me. It faded as I stared, sinking slowly into the fabric, like it was being absorbed into the bed itself. And from then on, small things began to move on their own, not violently, not theatrically, deliberately. My keys were found in the freezer, my shoes neatly stacked on top of the fridge. A photo frame on the nightstand turned itself face down every time I left the room. No matter how often I reset it, I started filming. Everything setting up an old camera with night vision, desperate for proof. But the recordings were always blank, or worse, static. Thick, oppressive static, with one unmistakable feature: breathing. Even without video, the camera captured sound, and for 13 nights straight, it recorded breathing for hours, constant, unbroken, and always louder between 3 o'clock and 3:17 a.m. Then the breathing stopped. Not on the recordings. In my room. It stopped because I wasn't alone anymore. I awoke one night to the closet door wide open again. But this time, something stepped out. I didn't see it directly, only what it left behind. Footprints, bare, wet, leading across the wooden floor toward my bed, stopping at the footboard. I sat up, trembling, and looked around with wide, aching eyes. Nothing was there. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was crouching just out of sight. Close, closer, than anything had a right to be. It didn't touch me. It didn't speak. It waited. And in that waiting, I learned the cruelest truth. You can't fight what doesn't need to be seen. You can only wait back. It changed after the footprints, not in an explosive, horror movie way, but in quiet, methodical shifts, as if whatever was here no longer needed to test the boundaries of my fear. It had mapped them, and now it was drawing closer, deliberately. Patterns began to form. Objects didn't move at random anymore. They formed arrangements. 3 books on the floor, always stacked in a triangle. The bathroom light would flicker once at 2:44 a.m., twice at 3:17 a.m., and then never again that night. Even the whispers had rhythm, now pausing after every 5th word, as though something was counting. I began marking everything, making notes, drawing timelines, trying to decode a message buried in the chaos. One night, I circled a cluster of occurrences on the calendar. Everything connected back to the same day, the 3rd Thursday of the month. It was the day my mother died. Suddenly, a door slammed downstairs. Not violently, just ... purposefully. I didn't move. There it was again, another door. This time the hall closet, and then the sound of something dragging, slow, deliberate, like fingernails pulled across. What? The sound climbed the staircase step by step, until it stopped just outside my bedroom. No knock, no whisper, only the door handle twitching like someone trying to remember how to use it. But I had locked it. I always locked it, and it turned. Anyway, the door creaked open just 2 inches, then paused. I sat frozen in bed, my hands gripping the sheets so tightly my knuckles ached. The crack in the door revealed only darkness. Then I noticed it, on the floor. A piece of paper, slowly pushed into the room. It was folded once, yellowed, old. I waited until morning to touch it. When I finally unfolded the page, my blood ran cold. It was a letter, handwritten, in my mother's handwriting, but it wasn't addressed to me. It was a note. To the house. You've taken enough. You promised silence. Do not take my daughter. The ink was faded, but real, tangible, not a dream. I had no memory of this note. I had never seen it in her belongings. It wasn't in her journals, or her attic boxers. I would have sworn she never wrote it, until I turned it over, and saw a smudge, a red fingerprint, small, childlike. Beneath it were 3 scratched-in words. It's too late. That night, I didn't hear breathing. I heard scratching, not from the closet, not from the floor, from inside the walls, as if something was trying to come through. By the following night, I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. Not that it wasn't happening, but that I hadn't already been claimed by it. The question wasn't whether the presence was real, it was whether I was willing to know what it wanted. I stood in the hallway just before midnight, staring at the attic door above the stairs. It was barely noticeable, painted the same color as the ceiling, with a thin, rusted pull string that dangled like a forgotten noose. I had never opened it. Not once. Until that moment, I hadn't even felt curious about it. And that, in hindsight, felt like its own kind of manipulation, as if the house had whispered me away from it. Until now. I climbed the ladder slowly, each step creaking with indecision. When I pushed the attic door open, a heavy breath of cold, ancient air poured down over my face. The scent was sharp, earthy, metallic, and something else. Old flowers, the kind left to rot in hospital vases. The attic was larger than I expected, empty, mostly except for a single chair in the center, and a mirror leaning against the far wall. A mirror I had never seen before. I stepped inside. The floor groaned beneath me, but I wasn't afraid now. I was inside the heartbeat of the house. Everything had led to this, every whisper, every shadow, every carefully orchestrated shift in my perception. In the mirror, I expected to see myself, but the reflection didn't match. My body stood still, yes, but my reflection blinked first. It moved before I did. A twitch of the head, a turn of the lip. It smiled at me. I did not smile. I stepped back. The reflection didn't. It leaned forward, pressing its hand to the inside of the mirror. Its eyes turned black void. I swear, I heard it whisper, with a voice like paper torn underwater. One must stay. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut behind me. The air grew heavier, dense, suffocating. The mirror began to ripple, like it was filled with water instead of glass. And from its surface, hands began to emerge, thin, gray, boneless, reaching, not to pull me in, but to pull themselves out. I stumbled back, knocking over the chair. It clattered to the floor, revealing something etched into the wood beneath. She knew. She stayed. You heard them. Now you choose. The scratching returned louder now. Closer, coming from everywhere. I ran. Not out of fear, but because deep down, I understood the final piece. This wasn't about haunting. This was about replacement. The house didn't want to be empty. It never had been. It just needed someone to take the next seat. Someone who'd heard. Someone who'd stayed. I didn't sleep after the attic. I didn't dare. But the strange thing is, sleep started reaching for me, even when I stood at the kitchen sink. Splash cold water against my face. Something would tug at the edges of my vision. A blackness creeping inward, not from fatigue, but from something inside me. Folding space behind my eyes, I began to lose time. I would wake up in places I hadn't meant to be: the floor, the stairs, once even outside the house entirely, barefoot, and shivering at the tree line, staring back at the second-story window, where my own silhouette stood watching me from inside. It waved IDIDN, single quotes T. Each day blurred more with the next, and the presence, whatever it was, no longer felt like a visitor. It had become a resident, and I was now the one trespassing. One morning, I found the hallway walls completely covered in symbols, carved into the plaster, spiraling upward. They were intricate, precise, far too exact for sleepwalking hands. When I reached out to touch them, the walls shivered under my palm, warm, breathing. That was when I realized the truth. The house had grown aware of me. It wasn't just haunted, it was alive, fed by fear, shaped by memory, and ruled by an intelligence that wore my reflection like a skin. I packed a bag that night. I didn't care what I left behind. I just wanted out. But the moment I touched the front door, The entire house groaned. A low, mournful sound that came not from wood, but from within the walls themselves. Then came the final sign. The lights went out, all of them, instantly. No power surge, no warning, and in that perfect blackness, I heard every door in the house unlock at once. Click, dot click, click, dot click, and from below. A new sound, footsteps thought slow, uneven, deliberate. Not up the stairs, not down the hall, inside my room. I wasn't even there. The house was shifting around. Me corridors stretching and shortening. Familiar rooms melting into wrong shapes. I ran, but every door led back to the same hallway, the one with the mirror. And now, the reflection wasn't me at all. She wore my face, but not my fear. Her eyes were calm, understanding. Her mouth didn't move, but I heard her voice, low and final, echoing in my mind. You've heard what we are. You've seen where we live. You know how this ends. I backed away. But behind me, I felt the warm air of breath. Not one, not two, many dot, as if I had walked into the center of a circle of unseen watchers. Then, I understood. There was never just one presence. There had never even been just this house. I had stepped into something older, deeper, a cycle. And once it noticed you, you couldn't leave unchanged. I left the house 3 days ago, or at least, I think I did. I remember standing at the threshold again, hand on the doorknob, sweat in, my eyes, breath hitching. The house had gone still deathly, still like it knew what I was planning, like it wanted to watch how I would try. When I stepped outside, the air felt wrong, too crisp, the sky too silent. No birds, no wind, no scent of soil or pine, just blankness, like I'd exited one dream into another. I drove for hours, not daring to look in the rearview mirror. I never once stopped for food, not even when my stomach growled and my lips cracked. It didn't matter. What mattered was distance. But the first hotel I checked into had the same wallpaper as the hallway upstairs. The nightstand had 3 books stacked in a triangle. The bathroom light flickered at 2:44 a.m., and when I closed my eyes, just for a second, I heard a whisper beneath the hum of the air conditioner. She stayed. You followed. That's when I understood. I hadn't escaped the house. The house had escaped with me. Now, everywhere I go, I see reflections blink before I do. I hear faint scratching behind walls, no matter the building. Lights dim at the same hour, and my dreams are full of rooms I never walked in, yet know by heart. I see them watching, in the gaps between shadows, in corners that should be empty, and the worst part, the voices are softer now, not screaming, not warning, inviting. They tell me I've already made the choice, that I'm already becoming something like them, something hollowed and listening. And sometimes when I stare at the mirror too long, I see her again, the one wearing my face. She smiles, and I find myself smiling back. I no longer sleep to rest, I sleep to join them, and every morning, I wake up with less memory of what was real, less certainty of whether I ever left that house at all. Maybe I'm still there. Maybe you are too. You just haven't heard them yet, but you will. They always whisper before sleep. Could you sleep after hearing this? What do you think really happened in that house? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you dare, explore another tale before bed, because once you've heard them, they never stop listening.